London glittered beneath a winter sky the color of old silver, and inside Ashcombe House, candles burned against the cold. Carriages crowded the street, their wheels hissing over damp stone, while gentlemen in black coats and ladies in jeweled gowns climbed the marble steps beneath a canopy of crimson velvet. Tonight, Lady Eleanor Ashcombe was expected to smile, bow, and pretend that nothing in her world was collapsing. She stood before the mirror in her dressing room, fastening a modest pearl necklace at her throat. Her ivory silk gown was beautiful, though its simplicity revealed what London had already begun whispering. The Ashcombes could no longer afford extravagance. Eleanor lowered her hands and studied her reflection. Her face was composed, her dark hair arranged in careful coils, yet beneath the calm lived an exhaustion no powder could conceal. "Your father hopes you will be noticed tonight," Mrs. Whitmore said gently from the doorway. Eleanor smiled without looking around. "My father hopes I will be married tonight." Mrs. Whitmore hesitated. That silence told Eleanor everything. The Ashcombe estate was burdened with debts. Their creditors had become impatient, and every dinner invitation now carried the weight of negotiation. Eleanor knew what her father wanted from her. Not happiness, but salvation. If she married well, the family could survive. If she failed, the house that had belonged to her ancestors for generations might soon belong to strangers. She descended the staircase with her chin lifted. The ballroom opened before her like a jeweled dream. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across polished floors, musicians played a graceful waltz, and roses filled silver vases beneath portraits of long-dead Ashcombes. Yet Eleanor felt none of the warmth surrounding her. She felt watched. She was. Whispers followed her through the room. "Poor girl. I heard the estate is mortgaged. Her father cannot possibly maintain the house another year." Eleanor heard every word and answered none. Then Lady Beatrice Harrow approached, smiling with the cruelty of someone who had learned to wound without raising her voice. Her sapphire gown shimmered beneath the chandeliers, and diamonds rested at her throat like captured stars. "Lady Eleanor," Beatrice said sweetly, "how brave of you to attend." Eleanor met her eyes. "Why would I not?" Beatrice's smile sharpened. "I only wondered whether tonight might be difficult. One imagines a family facing financial uncertainty must find these grand occasions rather uncomfortable." Several ladies nearby turned discreetly toward them. Eleanor felt heat rise beneath her gloves, but her voice remained steady. "Comfort is a matter of character, Lady Beatrice, not upholstery." A few smiles appeared. Beatrice's expression hardened. Before she could answer, Lord Julian Mercer approached. Eleanor remembered him as a gentleman who had once written to her with unmistakable affection. For one hopeful season, she had believed his attentions might become serious. He bowed. "Lady Eleanor." "Lord Julian." He glanced toward the watching guests. "May I speak with you?" They stepped aside. His eyes avoided hers. "I regret that I cannot ask you to dance tonight." Eleanor's heart sank, though her face remained serene. "You need not explain." "I must. My family has become aware of certain difficulties concerning Ashcombe." The words were polite. Their meaning was merciless. He feared being associated with her. Eleanor inclined her head. "Then I am grateful for your honesty." When he walked away, she remained perfectly still. Only her fingers betrayed her, tightening around the fan in her hand. A new murmur passed through the ballroom. The Duke of Ravensmere had arrived. Duke Alistair Ravensmere entered without announcement, yet conversation faded as though someone had extinguished every candle at once. He was tall, severe, and dressed in immaculate black, his dark hair brushed back from a face whose restraint had become legendary. London called him cold. Some called him ruthless. Others simply lowered their voices when he passed. His gaze moved across the ballroom, then stopped on Eleanor. For one suspended moment, neither looked away. Eleanor did first. She disliked the strange awareness his attention awakened in her. It felt too direct, too penetrating, as though he had noticed the one thing she had spent years concealing, how desperately tired she was of being judged. Beatrice immediately approached the Duke. "Your Grace," she said, offering her hand. Alistair acknowledged her with a bow. But his attention returned to Eleanor. Beatrice noticed. So did everyone else. The musicians began another waltz. Eleanor decided she had endured enough. She moved toward the terrace doors, hoping for a breath of winter air away from the suffocating warmth and sharper whispers. She had almost reached the corridor when Beatrice's voice floated behind her. "Leaving so soon, Lady Eleanor? How unfortunate. One might think you had something to hide." Laughter stirred. Eleanor stopped. She turned with a faint smile. "I have nothing to hide, Lady Beatrice. I simply prefer fresh air to poisoned conversation. She walked on. But someone stepped into her path. Her slipper caught the hem of her gown. The world tilted. A gasp swept through the ballroom. Eleanor reached for nothing and found only empty air. Then an arm caught her around the waist. Another hand steadied her shoulder. She did not strike the marble. Instead, she found herself against a man's chest, surrounded by the scent of cedar, winter air, and expensive cologne. Alistair. For a heartbeat, the ballroom disappeared. His grip was firm yet careful. Are you hurt? He asked. Eleanor swallowed. No, Your Grace. His eyes narrowed. He looked down at the gown caught beneath her slipper, then across the ballroom. Someone had stepped deliberately into her path. His expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. He leaned close, his voice meant for her alone. Nice try. Eleanor stared at him, bewildered. What? His gaze remained fixed beyond her shoulder. You did not fall by accident, Lady Eleanor. The warmth left her face. Across the room, Lady Beatrice stood still, her smile gone. And Eleanor suddenly understood that the Duke had not caught her. He had seen who pushed her. By morning, the story had already escaped the ballroom. London breakfast tables carried Eleanor's humiliation like a delicacy. Ladies repeated that she had fallen into the Duke's arms. Gentlemen embellished the incident until an accidental stumble became a calculated performance. By noon, one newspaper had printed a vague remark about a certain impoverished lady seeking protection beneath an illustrious title. Eleanor read the paragraph once, then folded the paper. Her hands trembled. Mrs. Whitmore noticed. You need not pretend with me. I am not pretending, Eleanor replied. I am deciding how much of their cruelty deserves my tears. She placed the paper beside her untouched tea. The previous evening should have ended with embarrassment. Instead, Duke Alistair Ravensmere had changed the shape of it. He had seen what others ignored, and worse, he had looked at Eleanor as though her dignity mattered. That thought unsettled her more than the gossip. At breakfast, Lord Ashcombe entered with a face made rigid by worry. He spoke of creditors, letters, and an overdue payment, but Eleanor understood the true subject before he named it. The Duke, he said. Eleanor lowered her cup. What of him? His interest could save us. She looked toward the window where rain traced thin silver lines down the glass. I will not marry a man to settle an account. No one asked you to marry him. Her father's voice softened. Not yet. Eleanor looked back at him. Lord Ashcombe sighed. You know our position. I know it better than anyone. Then do not turn away from an opportunity simply because pride tells you to. Eleanor rose. My pride is the only inheritance you have not mortgaged. The words struck him deeply and she regretted them at once, but neither apologized. That afternoon, Eleanor attended a charitable luncheon at Lady Merryweather's residence. She hoped the respectable purpose of the gathering might quiet the previous night's scandal. Instead, the moment she entered, conversations faltered. Lady Beatrice was already there. She greeted Eleanor with a smile so polished it seemed almost affectionate. My dear, how relieved I am to see you. I assure you, Lady Beatrice, I am perfectly well. I wondered. Eleanor did not answer. Then a footman approached carrying a small velvet box. Lady Eleanor Ashcombe. She accepted it with confusion. There is no card, my lady. She opened the box. Inside lay an antique silver brooch shaped like a winter rose. Tiny pearls surrounded a dark blue stone, and beneath the clasp was an engraving. For the woman who refuses to bend. Eleanor's breath caught. She knew immediately. No one else could have chosen words so precisely. Lady Beatrice noticed the change in her expression. How lovely, she murmured. A secret admirer? Eleanor closed the box. Apparently. That single word was enough to ignite another round of whispers. By evening, London had transformed the brooch into proof of a secret courtship. Eleanor was furious. She found Alistair in the library of Ravensmere House 2 days later, standing beside a tall window while rain darkened the gardens beyond. He did not seem surprised by her arrival. You sent it. He turned. The brooch? You know very well what I mean. A faint amusement touched his eyes. Then I suppose denying it would be insulting to your intelligence. Eleanor placed the box on his desk. Why? Because you were humiliated. That does not explain a gift. No, he said quietly. It explains why I wish to give you something that reminded you of your own strength. She stared at him. You barely know me. I know enough. His answer unsettled her. She folded her hands. You have made matters worse. Everyone believes I am pursuing you. Are you? Her cheeks warmed. Your Grace. Forgive me. There was no mockery in his expression now. I should not tease you about a matter that has already cost you peace. Eleanor looked at the brooch. Then why involve yourself at all? Alistair's voice lowered. Because I have watched people mistake gentleness for weakness. I dislike the habit. She lifted her eyes. And what do you believe about me? He stepped closer, though he stopped at a respectful distance. I believe you are stronger than the people who are trying to make you ashamed. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Eleanor whispered, You speak as though you have been watching me. I have. The admission sent a strange warmth through her. Before she could respond, footsteps sounded outside. Alistair's expression changed. He moved toward the door, but Eleanor stopped him. No. Let them see nothing. He studied her. You are learning quickly. I have had excellent teachers. A reluctant smile appeared on his lips. It was the first she had seen. When Eleanor returned home, she found her father waiting with another letter from the bank. But beneath it lay something worse. A list of debts had been purchased by an unknown creditor. Every payment was suddenly due. Lord Ashcombe's face had gone pale. Eleanor read the final line twice. Someone was buying their ruin. That night, Alistair arrived at Ashcombe House. He did not come to court Eleanor. He came with evidence. There is a hand behind your debts, he told her father. Someone has been arranging your creditors against you. Eleanor felt the room contract around her. Who? Alistair looked directly at her. I do not yet know. Then his gaze hardened. But I know one thing. Whoever is doing this does not merely want your estate. Eleanor's heart sank. What do they want? The Duke's answer was almost a whisper. They want you desperate enough to marry the wrong man. Eleanor felt suddenly colder than the rain beyond the windows. For the first time, she understood that the gossip might not be the beginning of her trouble, but merely its most visible symptom. Someone had been waiting for her to become vulnerable, and now that person had begun tightening the invisible cord around her family's future with patience and cold precision. And somewhere beyond those darkened windows, an enemy was already watching. 3 days passed beneath a sky of relentless rain, and during those 3 days Eleanor received no word from Alistair. She told herself his silence was sensible. The Duke had warned her that the danger surrounding her family was real, and sensible men did not linger near dangerous affairs. Yet each evening, when carriage wheels sounded beyond Ashcombe House, her heart betrayed her before reason could intervene. On the 4th evening a sealed note arrived. Come to Ravensmere House at 8. Bring the brooch. There was no signature. Eleanor knew. At 8 precisely, she entered the Duke's library. Firelight trembled across dark shelves, while rain whispered against the tall windows. Alistair stood beside the hearth, coat discarded, white shirt sleeves revealing the strength beneath his usual formal restraint. You came. You summoned me. His mouth curved faintly. And you obeyed. I nearly did not. Then I am grateful you changed your mind. He motioned toward the chair beside the fire. Eleanor remained standing. You said someone intends to force me into marriage. I said someone wants you desperate. And have you discovered who? Not yet. The answer disappointed her more than she wished to admit. Alistair noticed. But I have discovered how. He placed several papers upon the desk. They showed transfers between creditors, dates, and signatures. Eleanor studied them until one name made her blood run cold. Lord Harrow. Beatrice's father. Alistair nodded. His family has acquired portions of your debts through intermediaries. They are not merely waiting for your estate to fail. They are creating the failure. Eleanor sank into the chair. Why? Because desperation makes people accept bargains they would otherwise reject. She looked toward the fire. My father wants me to marry for money. I know. And Lady Beatrice wants you. I know that too. A bitter smile touched Eleanor's lips. Then perhaps they have both mistaken me for a very convenient woman. Alistair's expression softened. You are not convenient. The words settled between them. Eleanor looked at him. Then what am I? He seemed to consider whether honesty was worth the risk. Difficult. She laughed despite herself. Your Grace, that is hardly flattering. It is to me. The laughter faded, leaving a fragile quiet. Alistair moved closer. My mother was once considered the most fortunate woman in England, he said. She married my father believing she had found a man who loved her. She discovered too late that he loved power more. Eleanor listened without interrupting. He humiliated her publicly, maintained another household privately, and expected her to remain gracious because she carried his name. Pain shadowed his voice. When she died, everyone praised her dignity. No one asked what that dignity had cost. Eleanor's eyes softened. So that is why you despise marriage. I despise what people do with promises. She lowered her gaze. I understand. Alistair studied her. Do you? My mother taught me that a woman can disappear inside a respectable marriage while everyone congratulates her for being fortunate. The confession surprised them both. Eleanor touched the brooch resting at her throat. I fear becoming someone people pity. Why? Because pity is another form of loneliness. Alistair's eyes held hers. And what do you want? She answered honestly. To be chosen. Something changed in his face. Not rescued, she continued. Not purchased. Not displayed beside a powerful man so that society may applaud his generosity. Chosen. Alistair stepped within a breath of her. Then let me be the first man foolish enough to choose you without asking what you can give me. Eleanor's breath caught. For one suspended moment, the rain, fire, and distant clock seemed to vanish. His hand lifted, stopping just short of her cheek, as though even tenderness required her permission. She did not move away. Neither did he. Then the library door opened. Lady Beatrice stood upon the threshold. Her expression was composed, but her eyes were fixed upon Eleanor. How intimate, she said. Eleanor straightened immediately. Alistair's voice became cold. You were not invited. I came because I have something that concerns Lady Eleanor. Beatrice entered carrying a bundle of letters tied with black ribbon. She placed them upon the desk. These were found among Lord Ashcombe's papers. Eleanor looked down. Her name appeared on the first envelope. She broke the seal. The letter seemed to contain words written in her own hand, confessing an illicit correspondence with another gentleman. Her face drained of color. This is false. Beatrice sighed. Of course you would say that. Alistair took the letter. His eyes moved over the page once, then again. Eleanor watched his expression carefully. Your Grace, Beatrice whispered, I should hate to see your reputation damaged by defending a woman who has deceived you. Eleanor could barely breathe. Alistair said nothing. She saw only the severity return to his face, and fear seized the fragile hope she had allowed herself. Alistair, she whispered. He looked at her. The tenderness was gone. Eleanor stepped backward. I understand. She fled before he could stop her. Outside, rain struck the stone steps like thrown pearls. Eleanor walked without waiting for a carriage, tears mingling with the cold water on her cheeks. Behind her, Alistair remained in the library. He read the letter a third time. Then his eyes narrowed. There was one detail Eleanor had overlooked. The final word had been written with a flourish she never used. Alistair knew her handwriting. He closed his hand around the page, feeling the first true fury of the evening rise through him. Until that moment he had suspected a conspiracy. Now he understood its purpose. Eleanor's heart was not merely collateral damage, it was the weapon they meant to use against her. He would never permit it. Not while he breathed. Not now. Never. And suddenly, beneath his anger, something colder awakened. The letters were forged. But if Beatrice had forged them, she had made one fatal mistake. She had underestimated how closely the Duke had begun studying the woman she intended to destroy. By dawn, Alistair had read the forged letters until every false stroke had become an insult. He knew Eleanor's handwriting. He knew the delicate pressure she placed upon the final letters of her name, the slight hesitation before certain words, even the way her ink faded when she wrote while troubled. The letters before him possessed none of those imperfections. They were clever, but they were not hers. Someone had forged them. Worse, someone had expected him to believe them. Alistair stood before the library window, watching London disappear beneath a pale veil of rain. For years he had protected himself through distance. He had trusted evidence, contracts, and silence because emotions could be manipulated while facts could not. Yet Eleanor had changed the rules. He could no longer remain safely outside her troubles. By noon he had discovered the connection he needed. Payments from Lord Harrow's accounts had passed through 3 intermediaries before reaching Eleanor's creditors. The forged letters had been delivered on the same evening. It was no coincidence. Lady Beatrice had not merely wanted Eleanor disgraced. She wanted Alistair to doubt her. And that realization angered him more deeply than the financial deception. At 3 o'clock Alistair arrived at Ashcombe House. Eleanor refused to see him. Mrs. Whitmore met him at the door. She believes you accepted the letters as truth. I did not. She does not know that. Alistair's expression tightened. Then I shall tell her. Eleanor finally appeared at the top of the staircase. She looked pale but composed. You need not explain yourself, Your Grace. I intend to. I saw your face. And you misunderstood it. Her eyes hardened. Perhaps I am accustomed to being misunderstood. The word struck him. Alistair climbed the staircase slowly until they stood only a few feet apart. I never believed those letters. You said nothing. Because I was examining them. You might have told me. I should have. Her composure faltered. I thought, she whispered, that after everything you said in your library, I had finally made the mistake of believing you. Alistair's voice softened. You did not. Silence stretched between them. Then he held out the letters. I recognized the forgery. Eleanor stared. How? Because whoever wrote them knows your name but does not know you. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. I am tired of being a woman people can ruin with a whisper. So am I. She looked at him. He continued, and I am finished allowing them to do it. Before Eleanor could answer, carriage wheels sounded outside. Lady Beatrice entered Ashcombe House moments later, accompanied by two influential gentlemen and her father, Lord Harrow. She carried herself with serene confidence. I fear there has been an unfortunate misunderstanding, she announced. Alistair turned toward her. No misunderstanding. Lord Harrow bowed stiffly. Your Grace, this concerns a family matter. It concerns fraud. The room fell silent. Alistair placed the financial records upon the table. Lord Harrow's face changed. Beatrice recovered quickly. Surely you cannot accuse my family without proof. I have proof. He produced copies of the transactions. The accounts were transferred through intermediaries. Those intermediaries are connected to your household. Beatrice's composure cracked. Eleanor stared at her. You did this? Beatrice's eyes hardened. You were always given everything. Eleanor almost laughed. Everything? You had beauty, a title, a respectable family. I had debts I did not create and a father who considered me a solution. Beatrice stepped closer. And yet he still looked at you. Her gaze shifted toward Alistair. That is what I cannot forgive. The confession hung in the room. Alistair spoke quietly. You should have stopped before you harmed an innocent woman. Beatrice laughed bitterly. Innocent? She has been manipulating you since the first night. Eleanor flinched. Alistair did not. No. He turned toward Eleanor. I was manipulated only when I believed society's opinion mattered more than my own judgment. Then he faced everyone. You may question her fortune. You may question her family. You may even question the mistakes of those who came before her. His voice became colder. But you will not question whether she is worthy of being loved. The room seemed to hold its breath. That question belongs to me. Eleanor's eyes widened. Alistair crossed the room toward her. I have spent my life believing affection was a weakness. I was wrong. He stopped before her. You were humiliated before London and you stood upright. You were threatened with poverty and you refused to sell your dignity. You were accused of betrayal, and you still did not beg for mercy. His voice softened. I do not love you because I caught you when you fell. Eleanor's breath trembled. I love you because even while falling, you refused to surrender. Tears finally escaped her eyes. Alistair offered his hand. Lady Eleanor, I cannot promise you a life without whispers. I cannot command the world to become kind. But I can promise that you shall never again face it alone. Eleanor looked at his hand. Then at the watching faces around them. For once, she did not care what London expected. She placed her hand in his. A murmur swept through the room. Alistair's fingers closed around hers. Eleanor whispered, If I accept you, I will not do so because my family needs saving. I would not have it otherwise. I will not become a duchess merely to satisfy society. I have no desire for a wife who belongs to society. Her lips trembled into a smile. And if I say no? A rare smile appeared in his eyes. Then I shall respect you enough to survive it. That answer broke the final wall around her heart. I do not wish to say no. Alistair lowered his head. Before he could kiss her hand, the doors burst open. A breathless messenger entered carrying a sealed document. Your Grace, he said, forgive the interruption. Alistair took the paper. His eyes moved across the page. Then stopped. The color vanished from his face. Eleanor stepped closer. What is it? He looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. It concerns the Ashcombe estate. His hand tightened around the document. The person who began this entire scheme was not Lord Harrow. Eleanor felt the room tilt. Alistair's voice dropped to a grave whisper. It was someone inside your own family. For several seconds, Eleanor could hear nothing but the rain striking the windows. The document remained in Alistair's hand, its seal broken, its contents casting a shadow across the room that no candle could soften. Lord Ashcombe stood rigid beside the fireplace, while Lady Beatrice stared at the Duke with an expression that had lost every trace of triumph. "Who?" Eleanor whispered. Alistair looked toward her father. "Your uncle, Lord Edmund Ashcombe." The name struck Eleanor with almost physical force. Her uncle had been the gentlest presence in her childhood memories, the man who brought her sugared violets when she was a girl and taught her to ride before she was old enough to understand why her father disapproved. He had always spoken of family loyalty as though it were sacred. "No," she said. Lord Ashcombe closed his eyes. Eleanor turned toward him. "Father?" His silence was answer enough. Alistair placed the document upon the table. "Your uncle purchased information about the family debts years ago. He arranged for creditors to call in payments at carefully chosen intervals. When your estate became vulnerable, he intended to force a sale." Eleanor stared at the papers. "And inherit?" "Eventually." Her father's shoulders sagged. "I suspected something," he confessed. "But I had no proof. You allowed me to believe we were simply unfortunate. I was ashamed." Eleanor's voice trembled. "You let me believe I had failed you." Lord Ashcombe looked at his daughter, and for the first time she saw not the proud patriarch who had demanded obedience, but an exhausted man crushed beneath years of fear. "I thought I could repair everything before you discovered how badly we had fallen. You should have trusted me." "I know." Those two words contained more regret than any elaborate apology could have carried. Eleanor turned away. The betrayal hurt not because Edmund had wanted money, but because she had spent years blaming herself for circumstances engineered by someone she had trusted. Alistair approached her. "You owe your uncle neither forgiveness nor understanding tonight." She looked at him. "What do I owe him?" "Nothing." The simplicity of the answer steadied her. For once, someone was not asking Eleanor to sacrifice herself for the comfort of others. The investigation proceeded swiftly. Within weeks, Edmund's fraudulent arrangements were exposed, Lord Harrow's involvement was proven, and the Ashcombe estate was protected from seizure. Lady Beatrice withdrew from London under the protection of her family, her reputation damaged beyond repair. But Eleanor discovered that victory did not immediately erase pain. One quiet afternoon she stood alone in the library at Ravensmere House, staring into a fire that reminded her of the night everything had changed. Alistair entered without announcing himself. "You have been avoiding me." She smiled faintly. "I have been thinking." "Dangerous occupation." She glanced at him. "Very." He came to stand beside her. "What troubles you?" Eleanor hesitated. "You saved my family." "No. You did." "I helped expose the people who endangered it." "That is the same thing." "It is not." He turned toward her. "Eleanor, I would have done it even if you had never loved me." Her heart tightened. "That is precisely what frightens me." He frowned. She continued quietly. "I know you love me. I know what you have sacrificed. But sometimes I wonder whether you fell in love with the woman you rescued." Alistair's expression changed. "I do not want to be rescued," she whispered. "Not by you. Not by anyone." He took her hand. "You were never my rescue." "Then what was I?" He led her toward the window. Outside, the gardens were washed in pale evening light, the hedges silvered by recent rain. "Do you remember the first night?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "I remember falling. I remember you refusing to fall." She looked at him. "You were terrified," he said. "Your face had gone white, yet when you looked across that ballroom, you did not beg anyone to help you. You were already gathering yourself before I caught you." A soft laugh escaped her. "And you said, 'Nice try.'" "I did. I thought you were mocking me." "I was mocking the person who pushed you." His thumb moved gently across her knuckles. "I knew nothing about you that night except that you had dignity even when the entire room wanted you to lose it." He paused. "Everything I learned afterward only made me love you more." Eleanor's eyes filled. Alistair continued, "I loved your temper when you were frightened, your courage when you were ashamed, your stubbornness when everyone expected obedience. I loved that you could still be kind without becoming weak." She looked down. "And if I had possessed nothing? I would still have chosen you. If I had no title? I would still have chosen you. If I had never been able to give you an heir, wealth, or political advantage?" His expression softened. "I did not choose a bargain, Eleanor. I chose a woman." She could no longer hold back her tears. Alistair lifted her hand to his lips. Then choose me freely. She looked into his eyes. I do. The words were scarcely louder than the fire. Yet to Alistair they seemed to silence the whole world. Their wedding was held quietly despite London's appetite for spectacle. Eleanor wore ivory silk and the antique silver brooch he had given her. Tiny pearls gleamed against her throat, and beneath them rested the engraved words that had once seemed merely comforting. For the woman who refuses to bend. When she walked toward him, Alistair did not see the impoverished daughter of a disgraced family. He saw the woman who had taught him that love was not surrender. She saw the man who had begun their story as a stranger and ended it as the first person who had ever chosen her without conditions. Months later, Ravensmere House hosted a winter ball. The chandeliers burned brighter than before. Musicians played beneath gilded balconies, servants carried silver trays through the crowd, and London's most fashionable families gathered beneath the same glittering ceiling where Eleanor had once been humiliated. But everything had changed. When Eleanor entered beside Alistair, conversations fell silent. Not from pity. From respect. The same women who had whispered about her debts now curtsied. The same gentlemen who had avoided asking her to dance now waited for the Duke to introduce them. Eleanor noticed none of it. Her gaze remained on Alistair. He leaned toward her. Nice try. She raised an eyebrow. At what? Pretending you did not steal my heart that night. She laughed softly. I seem to recall you catching me before I reached the floor. I caught your body. His eyes warmed. You kept my heart. The music began. Alistair offered his hand. This time Eleanor accepted it without fear. They stepped onto the dance floor together, beneath a storm of candlelight and crystal. For one brief moment she remembered the woman she had been on that terrible night. Humiliated, uncertain, and convinced that her worth depended upon whether someone powerful might choose her. She almost pitied that frightened girl. Then she realized something far more beautiful. She had never needed the Duke to give her worth. He had simply been wise enough to recognize the worth she already possessed. Alistair drew her closer as the music turned gentle. You are smiling, he murmured. So are you. I have reason. Which is? He looked at her as though the answer should have been obvious. You. Eleanor lowered her eyes, smiling. Outside, snow began falling over London, covering rooftops, gardens, and streets in a quiet white veil. Inside, beneath the chandeliers, the woman who had once nearly fallen before all of England danced in the arms of the man who had refused to let the world break her. And perhaps that was the sweetest justice of all. The Duke had not chosen her because she was wealthy. He had not chosen her because she was beautiful. He had not chosen her because society approved. He had chosen her because when shame demanded that she bow, she remained standing. And when the whole world whispered that she was not enough, Alistair Ravensmere looked into her eyes and answered with the only verdict that mattered. She was his choice. Not his obligation. Not his salvation. His love.